Ulisse Aldrovandi, Italian naturalist and physician. Together with Konrad Gessner, he led the Renaissance movement that placed a renewed emphasis on the study of nature. The great naturalist Ulisse Aldrovandi 11 September 1522 – 4 May 1605 taught for many years at the University of Bologna during the latter half of the 16th century. A contemporary of Shakespeare, he was one of the first great specimen collectors and regularly organized expeditions for that purpose. He also brought about the creation of the university's botanical gardens in 1568, one of the first in Europe. Aldrovandi was nicknamed both the Bolognese Aristotle and the second Pliny. Like Pliny, much of his life was devoted to compiling an enormous encyclopedia. Moreover, it had the same name as Pliny's work. Aldrovandi's natural history was many thousands of pages long. It filled 14 folio volumes, 10 published posthumously between 1606 and 1668. It had fine illustrations, and to a large extent, the descriptions were based on direct observation, unlike those of so many of his predecessors. The only comparable work of the era was Gessner's Historia Animalium. Of Aldrovandi's innumerable books and papers, relatively few were published in his lifetime. One of the many books he wrote was Monstrum Historia, a history of monsters, a compendium of reported human and animal monstrosities. The book included accounts not only of monstrous natural births, but also of what now seem to be extremely far-fetched monsters. This sort of juxtaposition was common at IMN at the time, since there was not as yet a distinction between the literary and the scientific. If a given monster had been described by previous authors, it was considered proper to mention it, whether or not it was fabulous. Two-legged dragon, from Historiae Serpentum et Draconum 1640. Another of his books mixing fable with reality was Historiae Serpentum et Draconum, Records of Serpents and Dragons. Published in 1640, it pictured real snakes alongside creatures of questionable authenticity, such as the two-legged dragon at Ride, a modern-day dragon in Ohio. Eurasian Eagle Owl Ornithologia 1599. Taken together, his colossal output of writings covered all aspects of natural history. But, prior to his death, Aldrovandi's reputation depended more on his collections than his publications. In the 16th and 17th centuries, before the advent of public museums, private individuals would assemble collections of natural and foreign oddities, as well as artwork of all kinds. Called cabinets of curiosities or Wunderkammern, they were the precursors of modern natural history museums. Aldrovandi's cabinet was one of the earliest and most impressive collections of this kind, and was often described as the eighth wonder of the world. Although he left his cabinet to the city, it was largely broken up over the years. Only a dilapidated fraction remains on display today at the Palazzo Poggi in Bologna. More about Aldrovandi's cabinet. Aldrovandi did more, perhaps, than anyone else to establish natural history as a field of study would be worthwhile in itself, without the emphasis on potential application so characteristic of earlier eras. It is for this reason that later scholars, such as Linnaeus, regarded him as the father of natural history studies.